It's June 24th, 2019, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them up. Number 1, people running concentration camps don't like the term concentration camps. Last week, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez posted an Instagram video where she described the detention facilities operated by the American federal government near the U.S.-Mexico border as concentration camps. That didn't sit well with people you'd expect it to not sit well with. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy responded by saying that Ocasio-Cortez doesn't understand what's going on at the border, doesn't understand history, and owes an apology to the nation and the world. Republican Representative Liz Cheney had a similar reaction, tweeting that Ocasio-Cortez should learn some actual history and accusing her of demeaning the memory of those killed in the Holocaust. Isn't it odd how Republicans only ever seem to invoke the Holocaust when they're defending those doing the oppressing and persecuting, not those who are being oppressed and persecuted? Representative Ocasio-Cortez responded by rightly pointing out that while the Nazi concentration camps are the most infamous, the Nazis didn't invent the concept, and that many detention facilities that were not a part of the Holocaust have also been referred to as concentration camps. For example, the facilities where Americans of Japanese ancestry were detained during World War II have been called concentration camps, particularly by the people who were forced to live in them. The argument against using concentration camps to refer to the facilities where undocumented immigrants are currently being held seems to be, oh, let's not get carried away, it's not as bad as all that. But there's another two-word term associated with the Holocaust that Representative Ocasio-Cortez also used during her Instagram broadcast: never again. And never again means that we stop the next Holocaust before it happens. We don't wait for it to start happening, then say to ourselves, very well, now we can start using all that emotionally charged language we've been assiduously avoiding, lest we needlessly inflame the passions of the populace. Representative McCarthy says that Representative Ocasio-Cortez doesn't understand what is going on at the border, so let me state what is going on relative to these detention facilities as clearly and simply as I can. Large groups of people who belong to ethnic groups which are minorities in this country are being indefinitely held without trial in overcrowded facilities that lack the resources to properly care for them. There have been reports of preventable deaths among the prisoners and abuses committed by the guards charged with keeping order and preserving life. And this has all been done under the authority of a President of the United States who has made the vilification and persecution of undocumented immigrants crossing the southern border an explicit priority of his administration from the very day he first declared his candidacy for office. The best reason to call these places concentration camps is because that's what they are. The second best reason to call them concentration camps is because the people in charge of them really don't want you to call them concentration camps. They never do. Number 2, pastor/cop calls LGBTQ people worthy of death. This is Grayson Fritz. He's a detective with the Knox County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office. He's also the pastor at All Scripture Baptist Church in Knoxville. Earlier this month, Pastor Fritz delivered a sermon where he said this: "Content advisory, there's some violently homophobic rhetoric coming up, so if you don't want to hear it, you might want to skip this next bit."
The federal government, the police, or what have you, should enforce Leviticus 20:13, because the Bible says the powers that be are ordained of God, and God has instilled the power of civil government to send the police in 2019 out to these LGBT freaks and arrest them and have a trial for them, and if they are convicted, then they are to be put to death. Do you understand that? It is a capital crime that should be carried out by our government.
He misspeaks there at the end, but what he actually says is truer than what he meant to say. Our government carrying out the mass arrest and execution of LGBTQ people would be a capital crime. namely genocide. Fritz, who I remind you is a policeman, went on to declare that it should be a policeman's responsibility to carry out the state persecution of LGBTQ people, describing how cops should call for the riot team to respond to pride parades. He then fantasized about Jesus coming back, establishing an absolute dictatorship with no legislatures or courts, and carrying out mass executions of LGBTQ people. Fritz has been denounced by Jim Cooper, the member of Congress for his district, the mayor of Knoxville, Madeline Rogero, and the mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs. Yes, that Glenn Jacobs, Kane from WWE. He's the mayor of Knox County now, and a Republican. This is reality. Anyway, Fritz has also been placed on leave by the sheriff's office and has accepted a county buyout that will end his employment with the sheriff's office next month. Fritz's church has also been banned from holding an event at the local Cracker Barrel, which I imagine stings more than all the other rebukes he's received combined. You know you've messed up when you're a white guy and Cracker Barrel's not letting you through the door. But hey, the good news is an angry, hateful bigot has been exposed and will no longer be a member of the police force. And he was probably the only one, right? Number 3, Roy Moore is running for Senate again. Yeah, remember how much fun this was last time? Despite the fact that nobody other than him seems excited about it, former judge and current accused sex offender Roy Moore has announced he is making another run for the U.S. Senate. I mean, the other people involved not being into it never made a difference to him before, so. If Moore wins the nomination, it would set up a rematch with Doug Jones, who defeated Moore in the 2017 special election and became the first Democratic senator elected from Alabama in 27 years. But that's a definite if. Several other Republicans have also declared their intention to seek the nomination, and numerous prominent Republicans, including the other senator from Alabama, Richard Shelby, have basically told Moore to get lost. Don't they know he doesn't take no for an answer? Maybe the Senate should do what the Gadsden Mall reportedly did and ban Moore from the premises, just in case he does get elected this time, which, let's face it, might be a long shot, but is by no means out of the question. He only lost by like 1% last time, and that's after he'd been outed as a creep with a thing for teenage girls. Of course, among those opposing Moore's candidacy is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. But don't go thinking Mitch is a good guy just because he's against Roy Moore. That's 100% politics, trust me. If Moore had a good shot at winning the seat, Mitch would be backing him all the way, sex offenses be damned. Need I remind you of number 4? Mitch McConnell is still the worst? One of the challenges in talking about politics these last few years has been to point out the many, many alarming offenses of Donald Trump, while also reminding people that the problem extends far beyond Trump himself. Trump's personal corruption and ineptitude and indecency serve to amplify the dangers posed by policies that could conceivably have been supported by any other Republican president. How do I know that? Because Trump's policies are currently supported by virtually every other Republican serving in the United States Congress. And the most powerful of those congressional Republicans, Mitch McConnell, has done more to protect and enable Trump than anyone. In the last couple of weeks, McConnell has come under fire for refusing to allow votes on bills to increase security against foreign interference in American elections, some of which have bipartisan support. Not content to merely block legislation, on a recent Fox News Channel appearance, McConnell dodged questions about Trump's own recent comments about foreign powers interfering in elections, and instead accused Democrats of not being able to let go of the 2016 election result. What about what he just said this month, Mitch? This month of 2019? The thing the LMD just asked you about? McConnell also shrugged off Jon Stewart's anger over the lack of congressional interest in the plight of 9/11 first responders, who are still having to lobby for funding to cover healthcare expenses related to the 9/11 attacks, which took place, 18 years ago. McConnell said that he doesn't know what Stewart's getting all bent out of shape about, adding, "It sounds to me like he is looking for some way to take offense." Maybe. Or maybe he's tired of having to go to Washington, D.C. to beg you assholes for money for 9/11 first responders. McConnell is up for re-election next year, by the way. Voters of Kentucky. Just saying. You could do the rest of us a big favor. Think about it, won't you? Now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. So, Trump did this interview with George Stephanopoulos for ABC News. You might have heard about it. There were a few newsworthy moments. Here he is showing off the design for the new Air Force One, where the blue stripe is darker than the shade used in American flags, but coincidentally exactly the same as the shade Trump has on his private planes. And here he is ordering his chief of staff out of the room for coughing, then doing another take of his answer to a question, because this is all a TV show to him. And here he is explaining that he refused to speak to the special counsel under oath because they were trying to get us for lies. Is that a weak spot of yours, Donald? Your ceaseless, flagrant lying? Oh, and here he is saying that he would accept damaging information about his opponent in an election offered by a foreign entity, and he might not even tell anyone about it. And when Stephanopoulos points out the distinction between someone offering dirt on an opponent and someone from another country offering dirt on an opponent, Trump says, "I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI." You don't call the FBI. He actually said that on camera to a journalist like it was a completely reasonable thing to say. Of course you don't call the FBI, Trump. You're a criminal. I bet Al Capone never called the Untouchables either. The issue isn't what you would do. We already know what you would do. You already did it. Your campaign was contacted by Russians who claimed they had damaging information about Hillary Clinton, and you didn't call the FBI. Even if you weren't a criminal already, that would make you a criminal. After that clip of the interview was released, Trump defensively tweeted, "I meet and talk to foreign governments every day. I just met with the Queen of England, UK." Oh, so not the Queen of England, Arkansas then. "We talked about everything. Should I immediately call the FBI about these calls and meetings? How ridiculous. I would never be trusted again." Don't worry about that last bit, Donald. That train has left the station. One question. Did the Queen of England, UK, offer to give you any damaging information about one of your potential opponents in the upcoming presidential election? Because if she did, yeah, you should call the FBI. And that's not just some jackass in a YouTube video saying that. After Trump's answer to that question was released, the chair of the Federal Election Commission put out a statement clarifying that it is illegal for any person to solicit, accept, or receive anything of value from a foreign national in connection with a U.S. election. And furthermore, any political campaign that receives an offer of a prohibited donation from a foreign source should report that offer to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She tweeted that statement along with the note, "I would not have thought that I needed to say this." That's not something you want to hear the head of the Federal Election Commission say in reference to the President of the United States, is it? Hell, it's not something you want to hear a kindergarten teacher say about one of their students. "I would not have thought I needed to say this, but crayons go in the crayon box, not up your butt." Now the kid who put the crayon up his butt is in charge of everything! Of course, Trump did other stuff besides that ABC interview. He also tweeted next week, ICE will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. Refresh my memory, isn't that another one of those things Trump repeatedly promised to do during the 2016 election, and a bunch of doofus right-wingers and centrists said, "Oh, don't worry, he's not actually going to do that"? Yeah? He responded to writer E. Jean Carroll accusing him of raping her in 1995 by claiming he's never met her. Only there's a photograph of the two of them together in the article where she describes the assault. Not that it makes any difference to Trump or anyone inclined to take his side. Oh, and then there's this last thing. He almost started a war with Iran, but then called it off at the last minute. He tweeted, "On Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites when I asked, 'How many will die?' 150 people, sir," was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it, not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone." The Washington Post reports that administration officials informed Trump of the projected number of casualties before he ordered the strike in the first place, so Trump's version that it was his bottomless well of human compassion which stopped the operation is horseshit. But the commander-in-chief waffling over whether or not to strike an enemy isn't a good look for his bloodthirsty warmongering base, so Trump did the same thing he did when Mick Mulvaney coughed during the Stephanopoulos interview. He stopped, went back, and did another take. So, yay, no war with Iran. For now. But if Trump is allowed to remain in office, it's going to happen eventually. Let's not forget that along with everything else he is, Trump is a bad actor. And when a movie stars a bad actor, more often than not, that movie is going to bomb. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please click like and share the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to keep making videos like this one and like all the videos I make on this channel by supporting this channel with a monthly donation through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And believe me, those $1 a month pledges really add up and help me out like you would not believe. But if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, you can pledge at higher levels, and if you pledge $5 or more per month, you get yourself a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5, just like these folks, my newest $5 or more per month patrons, and their names are Ask and Tell Project, thank you Ask and Tell Project, Dan Barlow Jr., thank you Dan, Villa Lade, thank you Villa Lade, Real Life Jolie, thank you Real Life Jolie. Michael Nittle, thank you Michael. Jason Nebergall, thank you Jason. Nicholas Gross, thank you Nicholas. John McGowan, thank you John. Crystal of Truth, thank you Crystal of Truth. Matt Dancer, thank you Matt. And Brandon Enright. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks to everyone who is a patron of this channel, however long you've been, whatever level you are currently pledging at. I appreciate all of the support. I literally could not do this without you. Thanks to all of you for watching, even if you aren't patrons. Thank you for watching and liking and sharing and subscribing and doing all the free stuff that helps me to continue to grow and do what I do here on this channel. I couldn't do it without your help either. So thanks to all of you for all of your support in whatever form it takes. Thank you, as always, so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.